Hello everybody, I'm Sharpened Blade, and today we are going to take a look at the button lock Elementum from Civivi. I bought this at Integrity Knives. You can use discount code Sharpened Blade to receive 10% off pretty much anything on their website. I'll leave a link to their page specifically for this knife in the description of this video, so be sure to check them out and use that discount code. So in this video, I'm going to spend a little bit of time on the overall knife itself, and then I'm going to spend most of the time talking about the button lock aspect of this knife, because that's probably what most of you are mostly concerned with anyways. So overall, it looks very similar to the regular Elementum, just a little bit bigger, obviously. That extra size helps quite a bit with ergonomics. I find it a lot easier to fit all four fingers on this knife than the regular Elementum. It just feels nicer in hand. The pocket clip is alright. You can feel it. It's not a hot spot, but you can feel it when you hold it. But like I say, it's not a hot spot. The blade itself, like the regular Elementum, is of hollow grind. It's fairly slicey. I didn't find it to be super slicey, but it did the job all right. Most of my EDC tasks just involved breaking down some cardboard boxes and cutting some plastic and tape, and it handled the tape and plastic fairly well, obviously. But the cardboard, it kind of struggled a little bit in the cardboard. I had to push a little bit more than I was used to, but I have been carrying a lot of extremely slicey blades, so that could be just what I'm used to. However, I do find that it's a 14C28 blade steel, and I do find that this dulled a little bit quicker than I was expecting it to. It didn't really take long for me to start to notice that it was requiring a little bit more work to get through cardboard. You can kind of see, well, I guess you can't really see that well, but I was using it pretty much like right here in cardboard, and this area did dull pretty quick. So I don't know if it's a heat treat problem, or maybe 14C28 isn't as good a steel as I thought, but I have lots of other knives with 14C28 and blade steel, and it didn't seem to dull as quick as this, so I'm not sure what's going on with that. I really didn't do enough testing on it to know if there was a problem with it, or maybe it's just because I isolated a lot of the cardboard to right here. Maybe it just put a lot of wear on it. I'm not sure, but that's just something to be aware of. I do know that Gideon from Gideon Stuff, another channel that you should be aware of if you're not already. It's a great channel. Make sure you subscribe to him. He did say that the Nitro V on his bow seemed to dull a little bit quicker than he expected. He thought maybe the heat treat wasn't up to par, so maybe there's a problem. I don't know. But anyways, overall the knife works well. It's just that I did have that little issue with dulling, and it's still sharp enough to cut through paper, but it's just not as sharp as it was for sure. Now, like I say, the ergos are good. It's a pretty neutral handle, so the ergos are good. The design looks nice. The blade works relatively well. Fit and finish is the typical Civivi fit and finish. Everything's finished really well. The G10, though it's not my favorite G10, it's still a decent G10, so it feels nice. Decent grip. The jimping up here gives you a decent grip for your thumb when you do use it a little bit harder. Overall, it works well. It's got T8 screws everywhere except for on the pocket clip. Pocket clip isn't milled down into the G10, but everything's recessed, like the screws, I mean. So it does go in and out of the pocket fairly easily. And it has a lanyard bar, or tube, or whatever you want to call it, back here, built into the back spacer. So it doesn't really interrupt the flow of the knife itself with any extra holes that don't need to be there. However, I will say, speaking of extra holes that don't need to be there, I'm not sure why they felt the need to put the extra set of screw holes here for the pocket clip. I mean, not just on this side, I just mean in general. Like, why not just have it incorporated in that body screw? They do that in other knives. Why not do that in this one? I'm sure there's a reason for that. Usually, pocket clip is, it's nice to have a pocket clip that's angled a bit. That way when it sits in your pocket, like this, when you slide your hand down, you don't hit the flipper tab. But there's no flipper tab on this, so it doesn't really need to be angled. So they could just have it incorporated with that body screw. I don't know why they did that. It doesn't show up as much on the black G10 version, but it's still, you know, extra holes that don't really need to be there. That's just a little nitpick. But to get into what you're all probably concerned with is the action on this. So it's very smooth. The bearings are very nice on this. It's, as you can tell, there's no flipper tab. This is a very polarizing knife for Civivi because there's no thumb studs or flipper tab. There's really no deployment method other than just flipping it out yourself, which is fine. It works a little better when I don't have a camera right here, but once you get used to it, you know, it's fun to fidget with. I do find that there's a little bit of fatigue from this button on my thumb once I start fidgeting with it. It's not a sharp button, but it does cause a little bit of fatigue over time. So, you know, it is fun to fidget with, but you will feel it on your thumb. No big deal. I have to wonder why they implemented this type of a button lock system in the first place. So I really don't see any benefit to it, except for maybe to Civivi. Civivi would probably find a benefit in not having to try to figure out how to get a detent with a button lock. I can imagine trying to figure out how to make a decent detent on a button lock would be kind of tricky, since there is no actual detent other than, like, there's no detent ball to use for detent. You just, with a button lock, like say I'll grab the Malibu. With the Malibu, when you use the flipper tab, you're just pushing past the detent that is created through the lock itself. It's not using a detent ball or anything like that to create the detent. It's just the lock itself that you're pushing past. With this, so that's why it would probably be easier for Civivi to implement something like this, because they don't really have a really consistent way to dial in their detents, it seems, because they're okay with thumb studs, but most of their flipper knives don't have that great of a detent. So that would be a major benefit for them, not having to worry about a detent. But for us, I don't really understand. I guess it's cool on paper, but I found myself, now I did get used to it, but I did find myself missing the flipper tab. For the first little bit that I carried this, I'd pull it out of my pocket and I'd reach for the flipper tab and I would be disappointed. But once I got used to it, it's not too bad. Now, I kind of mentioned this a little bit in my unboxing. Some people thought it looked a little aggressive, you know, having to, you know, flip it out like that. There we go. To be fair, doing this in front of someone that's not used to knives is also going to look aggressive. So, I mean, I don't think the argument of it looking aggressive doing that makes any sense. It's just, it might look a little more aggressive than usual, but it's still going to look just as aggressive as if you pull out a knife from your pocket and flick it open or flip it open, you know, quickly. The only way a knife does not look super aggressive is if you just open it two-handed. So, yeah, that argument doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But this knife doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. A lot of us were looking for a bigger Elementum, but we were happy when we saw this, we weren't really expecting it to have this weird button lock system on it. So, like, I don't know. In case you're not aware, the knife is locked. One like this. This is locked. You have to press the button to unlock it, and then it's locked open again. Then you press it, and then there's pressure on the knife. It's kind of like a, let's see if we can show it here. Yeah, you can see there's like a lock bar that pushes on that. It's not necessarily a spring, it's a bar. Kind of like a double detent on like one of those non-locking knives with the double detent that come, you know, the little lock bars that come out. Same kind of deal. It pushes on the button lock, and that's what locks it. So the knife is locked shut, and it's locked open, it's locked shut. So yeah, it's not something I've seen in a lot of other knives. I don't think I've seen this before. If there are other knives out there like this, let me know in the comments. But I've honestly never seen another knife with this kind of a button lock system before. Civivi does have some button locks coming out soon, I'm sure. I think I saw a couple different models with traditional button lock systems on them. They're not locked shut, and they have flipper tabs. I'm pretty sure. Maybe they have the same stupid system, I don't know. But there are reviewers out there that are basically saying stay away from this knife. I wouldn't really say stay away from it. I don't really understand the reason they designed it this way, but I did find myself enjoying it. I don't know. Like, it's just nice to have flipper tabs. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's weird. I find myself scratching my head whether or not I would recommend this or not. I would recommend it, I guess. I would lean more towards recommending it. You know, give it a chance, give it a try, see what you think of it. It is you know, typical Civivi, good fit and finish. You know, it's relatively slicey. It's just got this weird mechanic, but I wouldn't avoid it. I just be aware that it is different. So I'll put some specs on here now. And we'll do some size comparisons. So this is to the Rat Model 1. And this is it to the Rat Model 2. So it's pretty much like right in between the two of them. You know, it's a decent size. Maybe they'll do just a regular version sometime with a flipper tab and a liner lock. This is it next to the Elementum. And since I have the Malibu out, next to the Malibu. So yeah, kind of summarize. It's a solid choice for EDC. It slides in and out of the pocket easily. It carries easily. It's not super heavy. It cuts fairly well. Like I say, it's not super slicey, but it does cut quite well. But it just has this button lock mechanic that you have to decide whether you want to try it or not. But yeah, I would say at least give it a shot. But anyways, before I go on too long about this, thanks so much for watching. Take care.